Hello and welcome to this Learn tutorial. In this tutorial I'll be showing how you can combine the power of ChatGPT and their API with Python to automatically create slideshow presentations on a topic, any topic that you choose. This is really useful, and you can use it for other things other than creating PowerPoints, but we'll show you this example. So for instance here I've just run my example here, told it to create a presentation about the top 5 things to do in Barcelona, and then it's produced this presentation here. There we go. It's gone off, pulled all the information and put that onto the presentation. Done that all for me, created the presentation file for me now. All I need to do is edit it and put a pretty theme on it. Okay, really good. Okay, so let's get going. So the first thing we need to do is, there's quite a few steps to go through on this, but the first few things that you need to do, you need to install OpenAI using pip3. So you can do that on Windows and Linux. The instructions are a bit different. I'll put some links on how to do that. You need to install OpenAI. That'll give you access to the OpenAI API. And you'll need to install the PPTX module, which is a Python module that automatically generates and edits PowerPoint presentations. And you'll also need to sign up for an OpenAI account. So you sign up for an account. They do then give you, depends on where you live, but they give you about $5 worth of free access. And you can generate an API key there. That's the most important thing. That's where you need this API key. So it will generate you an account to give you some free credits, and then after you've run out, you can sign up for a paid-for account. But it's really cheap. I think these credits last for about a month. Anyway, it'll give you enough time to work out whether it's something you want to use or not, or just have a play. I really like it, so I use it all of the time. Okay, so once you've done that, we can then get started. So you go off, do that, I'll put links to that, and then we can actually start coding. So the first thing we need to do is we need to import a few modules, import OpenAI, because we're going to use that to connect to the ChatGPT API. We're going to need to use JSON, because that gives us a way of handling structured data, and we'll talk about that in a bit. We're going to need to import the PowerPoint module, which there we go. We're only going to use the presentation part of that module, so we'll import presentation, which is done. And then what we also need to do is you need to put your OpenAI API key in. So OpenAI.API key, there we go. Where's my thing gone? Oops. Ooh. Oh, I've just changed my language to Spanish, that's why that's not working. Let's try again. I was a bit confused there. That's much better. API key. There we go. And yours will be a very long API key, something like that. I can't show you my API key because then that'll be invalidated inevitably. Use it. So instead of putting your actual API key here, I'm going to have to do something slightly different, and I'll have to do what's this called? What I called it? API key. Yeah. I'm going to have to API key dot key. There we go. There we go. You wouldn't do that, okay? When you're doing it yourself, you don't put that. I'm doing that because otherwise it won't work. But you would actually put your API key here and don't do the line below. Okay. Again, if you have trouble, I'll put the full code in the links to the description so you can work through that. Okay, so you need to put your API key there, whatever it is, and then let's get the prompt that we're going to use. I'm just going to do a nice simple, not prompt, presentation title. Presentation title equals, there we go. What do you want to make a presentation about? There we go. So we're going to ask them what we want their presentation to be about, and we're going to put that into the API call. Here we go. Now, when we're doing an API call to the ChatGPT API, we want to send the data and receive the data in a structured manner. And the way that we do this is we use a structure called JSON, which is a really, really good structure, maps really well onto the Python structures that I wouldn't normally use when we're teaching a lesson. And it just gives us a nice, easy way to represent the data that we're going to send and then handle the data that we receive. So we're going to create a JSON structure here. And what do we need to put? Well, we need to tell it, when we send the query off, we need to say, okay, this is what our query is going to contain. So it'll look like that. And that's our input text, which is the actual query itself. And then we need to tell it, okay, in what format do we want it returned? So we could do output format. Now JSON here is, there we go. So as well as sending the data in JSON, which is what we've just created here, we're also going to ask it to return it in a similar manner so that we can handle that. And then we need to tell it what kind of structure, some details of the structure that we're actually going to have when it returns it. So we say, okay, well, our JSON structure, this is pretty simple. I just want you to send me back a list of slides. And inside of that slides is just going to be each of the presentation slides. Presentation slides, there we go. We'll just close this. There we go. I will explain a little bit more detail in a minute about what's going on here, but we'll just get this typed up. There we go. Good, good. Okay, so this is JSON. It's a nice structured way. Oops, I've just missed the opening bracket there. That's why I didn't like that. It's a nice structured way of showing the data. And the only thing you need to know here is we've got this query bit here, which is going to be our query that we put in a minute, which is going to combine this bit here together with a few more details, and you'll see that in a second. We need to tell it what format we're going to return it in, which is JSON. This structured format here that we've got, which is a key value pair. So we've got key value, key value, key value. And we'll need to tell it what we want to swap out. So I've just made a few little errors here. There we go, that's better. That looks more like valid JSON. So we're going to tell it that when it returns, it's actually going to return something really similar to this, but it's going to swap out this bit with the actual data that we want. And we'll move on to that in a second. There we go. Okay, good. So we've got the general query there. Now we need to formulate our question. And our question is going to be, okay, generate a, let's say a 10 slide presentation for the topic, and then what we'll do is we're going to have to give it the topic. So we'll go here, and what we need to do now is we need to come out of the string. So we're doing a string, come out of the string, and then we'll combine that with the presentation title. There we go. And there we go, for presentation. There you go, and then good. Each slide should have a header and content. There we go. And then return as JSON. There we go. Okay, so what I've done here is I've said, okay, this is going to be the actual query that we're going to have. It's going to be a few little bit more bits to go into it, but basically we're going to tell it we want it to generate a presentation. It's going to swap out this presentation variable here for whatever we type in the presentation here, and then we're going to tell it that each slide should have these these particular attributes here, the header and the content. You don't have to tell it that we want to give it a header and a content. It will probably give those, but because it's a large language model and therefore it can choose what it returns, it might not return header and content. It might return title and content, or slide title and content, or slide title and title content, or something else. And we want to be a little bit more specific, because otherwise, as you're going to see in a bit, we need to be able to handle and find out exactly what it's returning and handle those specific ones. So otherwise, it will be a bit of a pain. Okay, good. There we go. So there's our question. There we go. And then we need to create the prompt that we're going to provide to ChatGPT. Here we go, which is essentially the same prompt as what you would type into ChatGPT on their website. So we need to do query JSON. There we go. Dot replace. There we go. And here what we do is we tell it, okay, query, if I'll just put this in, here we go, there we go, question, there we go, brilliant, good. So what this line does when we're creating the prompt is going to be all of this here. That's the prompt. Well, actually it's just from here to here. So we're going to create the prompt, but when we do create the prompt, we want to swap out this box query with this whole question that we've just created. And we can show that in a second. Actually, if I go here now, let me just print the prompt and let's show that in action. We've done quite a bit here. So let's save this now. GPT present, and let's see if this works. So let's go to the terminal, and let's do GPT present, I think it was .py. Hey, there we go. Oops. API key is not defined. Great. Oh, that's because I've not imported API key. Import API key. Let's just save that. You won't need to do that because you'll be typing in your API key. I've only got doing that because I'm trying to keep my API key hidden. Otherwise, we'll get there'll be issues. There we go. Good. So here we go. There you go. Asset, and let's say I want to make my presentation about turtles, and you can see this is what it's done. It's created this query here, this structured query, where we're going to give it the input text of generate a 10-slide presentation. Each slide should have and it's told it what format it's going to do it, and then what kind of stuff it wants to return there. Good. So the first part of the query now is done. The prompt's ready to go. All we need to do is tell it what kind of engine that we're going to use to do the prompt, and then send it off. So what we do here is we do completion equals, and again, you don't have to type this as it's going along. You can just copy and paste the end code. I will put all that in, but sometimes it's nice just to type it by hand anyway, because it just gives you a better learning experience. Okay, so we're using the OpenAI module. We're actually connecting to that, and we're connecting to the chat completion. And the model that we're going to use, because they won't give me access to the newest one yet, I'm not signed up to their beta, is the 3.5 Turbo. There we go. We're going to use that model, and then messages equals, and then we just need to say, okay, we're going to do a normal query. So our role is as a user. Sometimes you'll change that, but I'm not going to go into that today, why you might change that. Content is prompt. Prompt. There we go. Content is prompt. There we go. Close the square brackets, close round brackets. There we go. So we've created this completion that we're going to send. And then all we need to do is, once that completes, we go and get the contents of the completion. So the response that we're looking for is completion dot choices 0 dot message dot content. There we go. And what we'll do for the moment is we'll just print the response so you can see what that looks like. the raw response. And also we'll see if I've typed all that incorrectly. Let's have a look. Okay, so let's run it again. Again, we're going to have to give it another thing. I'm going to stick with turtles because I like turtles. There we go. Enter. Helps if you press enter. That's a good idea. Let's say I'm going to create it about turtles. There we go. So it's created our response here. It's created our query that we're going to send off. And now it's sending the query off to ChatGPT. And you can see it flashing here. It's waiting for ChatGPT to send a reply, which it's just done. And there we go. You can see it now. So ChatGPT has sent us a response here. And it's only quite a small response here. You can actually edit your query to make it a bigger query. But this is going to create this. If we gave this data, it would create a very simple PowerPoint. Now notice here, if you look at the structure that's returned here, it's returned a structure with a one key here called slides. And inside that slides is a list. And inside each of those lists is a little dictionary with only two keys in that dictionary: the header key, which is the key to the whatever's in the header, and the content key to whichever is in the content area. Good. So now what we need to do, now we've got it communicating with ChatGPT, it's sending us a response. We now need to use the other part of the program, the PPTX part of the program, to create us automatically a PowerPoint. So let's have a go at that. So in order to do that, what we need to do is we need to first of all make sure we've imported the PPTX module, which we have up there. We've imported the bit, the presentation bit, which is the bit we need. So the first thing we need to do is we need to use the JSON module, JSON.loads, to load that response in that we've got here into a Python dictionary. At the moment, where the response is just a text-based response, so Python doesn't really understand what that is. So what we do is we need to actually tell it that that's going to be Python data. So we do JSON.loads response, and that will now load that response we were given into Python under the variable R, so all that data will be in there. There we go, good stuff. And we need to say, okay, we're going to go to that. We're going to go to that R, which is the response that's been loaded, and we're going to get the slides data. So we say, okay, slide data equals, go to that R, and just get us all those sections called slides. So it's going to load as a list called slide data. List is going to be all of this content, which is a list of dictionaries anyway. Good. There we go. So now we've loaded all of those different responses into a Python list. And what we're going to do is we need to loop through that list, building the presentation. So let's create ourselves a new presentation. Oh, for some reason I've just gone back to Spanish again. So we need to create ourselves a presentation. So we do PRS equals presentation. Good stuff. So we've created ourselves a new presentation, and then we're going to loop through each of the slides inside of that slide data and build ourselves a slide for the presentation. So for slide in slide data, there we go, slide layout equals PRS slide layouts 1. There we go. So what this does is, obviously in PowerPoint presentations you have a number of different layouts that you can choose. Slide layout 0 is the title slide, which we don't want at the moment. We want to be using the normal slide data layouts, where the one it's got the title at the top and you can put all the content in the middle. Obviously, if you have a play with this and you start to expand on it and you want to add title slides as well, then you can change that 1 to a 0 to do a title slide, or use any of the other slide layouts. You can work with all of them. And I will put a link to the PPTX module that explains some of the fancier things that you can do. Okay, so we choose the standard slide layout, which is the number 1. And then we create ourselves our first slide. So pis.slides.add slide. And then we're going to add a slide using that standard slide layout. Obviously, you'd change that if you want to do a different one. And then what we need to do is we need to say, okay, if our slide that we've just been given in this list, if it contains a header, we want to set the header of the slide to introduction. And if it contains content, then we set the content to whatever's in that content. And that's really quite simple. We just say, okay, here we go. If slide brackets header, there we go. So if slide has something called header, there we go. Title equals new underscore slide. New slide dot shapes dot title. Okay, so if we've got this header thing, we need to go and get the title part of the slide, and we need to set that title part, the text of it, to whatever is in that header component there. Header. There we go. So this slide header will go to the slides data in that list, find the header and put it as the title.text attribute, which will set the text of the slide. Really quite simple. So we do that for the header, and then we do a similar but slightly more complicated thing for the actual slide content. But the same idea. We go and see if there's slide content, and then if there is, we go, okay, shapes equals new slide dot shapes, because although there's only one title in a presentation, often most slides, if you think about it, actually have multiple boxes on there where you have different pieces of data. So we need to sort of tell it where to go find it, what we're going to be putting it on. So we go to there, we say we're going to be looking through these shapes, and then we find the body shape, which is the shape that is going to be the main body of this nice simple slide. Placeholders, body shape of shapes.placeholders. Get the first item there, and then okay, we get a text frame because we're going to go inside of that shape and get the text that goes in it, because that shape's more than just the text. Text.body, body shape.text frame. There we go. And then once we've got that text frame, which we've called tx, then we set the tf.text to the slide content. There we go. Good, done. So that now is pretty much done, which is fine. We might want to do something where we say, okay, well, because obviously that text could be any size, we might want to do something where we just make the text fit depending on how big it is. So this bit's optional, but we can do tf.fixtext, fit text, and this will make it fit. And let's just show you some of the more fancier stuff that you can do. Font family equals Calibri, so you can change the font of it. And then obviously because it's fitting into the size depending on how much text is there, we can set some few of these attributes here. Again, you can have a play with those. You don't have to set them on this line, it's optional, but it does give you an idea of some of the things that you can do with it. There you go. So now that is pretty much it. In theory, all we need to do is we just need to save it and tell it there we go, what file that we want to do. There we go. And that should be all of the code. So let's just save it. I always have errors in my code, so let's see what happens when we run it. Let's see what errors I've got first of all. Let's try turtles. Let's try turtles again. Okay, so it's going to produce us a slide about turtles. So hopefully now it'll go off and it will go get the data. Should take about 20-30 seconds to go get the data, maybe up to about a minute sometimes if ChatGPT is busy. Get the data, return the data, and then produce a presentation. There you go. That's good news. It looks like it's done nothing which is always good news in programming. Usually if it says anything, it's something's wrong. So hopefully it should have created a presentation, and under the name output, yeah, there we go. And let's see if that's worked. There you go. Slide 4, slide 5. Good, there we go. So you can see here, it's done all the way along there, and it's created 10 slide presentations. Okay. And that really is pretty much about it for the actual work. Let me just zoom in a bit closer. Here we go. The only thing I can say here really is you probably want to play with the actual question, the prompt that you're putting in, as is so many people want to talk about. So for instance, I've just done a basic one there, but there's not a lot on there. You might want to tell it how many words per slide. So, produce, 50 to 60 words per slide. You might even want to do something and tell it about specific sides that you want to do it. So let me go. The final slide should be a list of discussion questions or something like that. Discussion questions about the PowerPoint. Yeah, there you go. That might work. Or you could say, the final question is a multiple choice quiz or anything like that. I'm sure if you have a play with it. Let's see what happens there. Let's see if it does that. Let's have a quick play. You've got the basic code there. Let's have a quick go with that. Let's see if that does anything different. And let's say the houses of Parliament. Let's see if that works. I'm not sure if it's Parliament or Parliament. Well, my brain is going fuzzy. Here we go. So let's have a look. Let's see how that goes. See if it does anything different. Again, you can have a play with it. Try loads of different things. If you do come up with some decent prompts that really improve the quality of the PowerPoint that's produced, then please do put it in the comments. I really do appreciate these things. I'm always learning new things, and I certainly love learning things off my students. There we go. So let's see how that goes. Should take, hopefully, this one seems to, because it's taking longer, that's usually a good sign. There we go. It seems to have produced a little bit more. So let me close this down. Let's reopen that other one. Here we go. And yeah, it seems to be producing quite a bit more here. And there it's done discussion questions on the last, there we go, the last page. There we go. Challenges. So again, depending on the quality of the prompt that you put in, you can see some really good outcomes. But there's something really, really cool and simple that you can use ChatGPT. Really good in your projects. Very, very quick and easy to use. And yeah, so I hope you like the tutorial. If you have any questions, just pop them in the YouTube comments and I'll see what I can do. Thank you very much.